Hello, everyone, and welcome to EduMatch. So follow along with us on Google Plus at bit.ly/tweettalk52 and on Twitter with the hashtag EduMatch. Speaking of EduMatch, do you want to be the featured person of the day? Do you want to grow your PLN in purposeful ways? Then please join us. Check us out at edumatch.org where you can sign up and fill in some information, and we're going to tweet things about you all around the clock so that our friends all around the world can find out how awesome you are and you can get connected. And also there's information there on how to join our infamous Voxer group that goes all around the clock, so as well as other things wherever else we may be. So just wanted to give a huge shout out to EdCamp Global, which will be going on June 29th and 30th. So please join in for that. They're looking for facilitators, as well as Pass the Scope EDU, which is coming before that this Thursday. And check out the hashtag PassTheScopeEDU on Twitter and on Periscope. There's going to be some great things coming along, okay? Also, there is the EduPassions conference going on at edupassions.net on September 3rd, so we are looking for people to fill out the call for presenters. If you have something that you are passionate about, then please join us on that day, and it will be awesome. So tonight, we are bringing back by popular demand design thinking. So we have an awesome set of panelists here for you. We have our moderator, Valerie, who might be having some connection issues, but she will no doubt be back. But in the meantime, then we're going to just go ahead and have the panel introduce themselves. So we will start from my right to my left. So let's start first with Toutoule. If you could please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Toutoule. I'm from Southern California. I am a independent consultant now, and I'm doing some work with creating maker spaces in the classroom environment, not just having a maker space as like an after-school project, but actually integrating maker spaces into the regular instruction day. So my dissertation was actually on STEM integration, and this design thinking came out of, was a big part of my research. So I'm really excited about design thinking and integrating design thinking into instruction as well.
All right, fantastic. Happy to have you here. All right, let's go next to Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Filardo. I teach in St. Louis, Missouri, job switch, so I keep saying the wrong city. And I'm going to be teaching technology and computer applications this next year at the high school level, and I'm really excited about design thinking because it works so well in both of those content areas. So love it, love it, love it.
Awesome. We can definitely sense your enthusiasm, so very glad to have you here. We next have Jessica, who's joining us for the first time. So Jessica.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jessica Lura. I'm a TOSA. I'm a teacher on special assignment at a K-8 charter school in Northern California outside San Francisco. And I work with students and I work with teachers. And I do design thinking with students. I've taught first grade using design thinking, 8th grade, where I've used design thinking with students, as well as used it with my teachers to help solve actual different school problems. And so I'm really excited to continue the conversation to talk about how we can use design thinking to really support student learning and kind of making our schools better and providing opportunities for students to just learn more, as well as have teachers feel supported. So thank you.
Great. Very happy to have you here. And next we have Adam, who's also new to our panel.
Yeah, hi. My name is Adam Brown. I'm a principal here in Chesapeake, Virginia. For 3 years, I was a principal for an elementary school that was for students with emotional disabilities. And actually this year, I'm overseeing the elementary school and our middle and high school at the same time. And they're all with students with emotional disabilities and special ed students in alternative setting. And I'm using design thinking a lot with trying to navigate covering 2 buildings with a lot of support staff, a lot of teachers, and I actually got to use a lot of it this week with some of my administration. It worked really well, so I'm looking forward to this chat.
Awesome. We are so happy to have you here. And now I'm going to kick it over to our fantastic moderator, Valerie. So if you could please introduce yourself, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Awesome. Well, I am Valerie Lewis. Thumbs up if you can hear me fine. Awesome. I am a Georgia educator, language arts, special education, and I am excited to be in this chat tonight, and glad that Sarah asked me to moderate. Design thinking is definitely something that I am learning as I go, the ins and outs about it. So I do not profess to be a professional and expert in it, but I gather that it is something that we as educators may have been doing and just didn't recognize that that's what we were doing, and maybe it's been called something else. But nonetheless, I'm excited to have you guys here with us this evening, and I guess the first thing that I'll throw out there is, how would you define design thinking? So for those people that may be tuning in for the first time with us, how do you define it? What is it? And if you don't mind, what is it not? Are there any brave souls that's willing to jump in there and tackle that question?
Yeah, for me, design thinking is kind of along the same lines as problem-based learning, but it's really using these designing to solve problems, right? And when you're looking at, the big thing with design thinking is thinking of a solution to a specific problems and how to design that the solution. So going through the process of designing it, going through the process of iterating, and going through the process of failing maybe, and through that whole process, you really where the authentic learning happens. So that's why I really got excited about design thinking, because that's really what scientists do. Scientists and engineers, they find a problem, they design solutions to it, they test it, and they come back and they see if they're right or wrong, and then they iterate and they keep going until a final solution is found.
Awesome. Awesome. Adam, Stephanie, or Jessica, anything that you want to add to that of what Toutoule mentioned in terms of the definition of, or how would you define design thinking, and what would you say it is not?
I think for me, design thinking is a lot of guided discovery. It is being okay as an educator to move students down a path towards finding their own solutions or their own answers, but being okay if they fail, and teaching the students to be okay that they fail. I think oftentimes in education we're so product-oriented, and design thinking and guided discovery is all about the process and being okay with the process and trusting in the process. What it is not is taking a graphic organizer and going step by step and we're designing an answer. I don't think that's it at all. It's not standardized testing. It is believing in the process of learning and being that person who can kind of push a student forward as they maybe get stuck or maybe they need help at a certain area, and that's your role. But in the end, they're finding their own answers, finding their own way of learning.
So Adam, if I hear you correct, and I like what you mentioned when you said what it is not, so those teachers that may be new to the idea or not sure how to integrate or implement this in their classroom, this is where it may and guiding the learning and telling everyone what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And so what you are saying with design thinking is we're going to have to take a seat. Matter of fact, take several seats and step away and allow students to discover, probe, ask questions. It's their guided discovery, and kind of be there more so as a facilitator.
Yeah, and I think that facilitator is key. And as an administrator, I have to allow those teachers to take those instructional risks, and I have to be there when it doesn't go as planned, or they say, well, this isn't what I always do, and kind of help coach them through. And for me, as a principal for my staff, I try to implement a lot of professional development that's around design thinking, where the teachers are helping create policies or guidelines or protocols and kind of show them that it's not as scary as it sounds, and it actually is a really good tool.
Awesome. Stephanie or Jessica, did any of you guys want to add to that?
Stephanie was going to say something, but I'd be happy when she connects to mention something. Oh, she's back.
I think I'm in there. Sorry. Okay. I was had to yell at some dogs to be quiet. So I think that the thing for me that, of what design thinking is that it's it's the opportunity for me as a teacher and as a facilitator to say yes to my students at times when we would normally say no. So a project that I did with my students over the summer is they were building cardboard roller coasters, and you know, I gave them.
I have something to add as well. I guess I'll stop as well when Stephanie comes back. But I think one of the biggest important parts of design thinking as a problem-solving process is it really focuses on the user, and so empathy plays a huge role in design thinking, and I think that's what makes it different from something like just like the plain engineering process, and often what project-based learning or problem-based learning often has, is that you really think about the user, and the beginning part really is that developing empathy for the user. So you're not designing something that's just fun for yourself, but it's about the person that you're designing for. And I think that makes it really powerful for students, because that gives them an opportunity to really think about others and their point of view, the other person's point of view, their user's point of view, rather than their own. And I think that's what makes design thinking so powerful, and it makes what students learn from the process so powerful.
Awesome. That is excellent. And Stephanie, I see that you are,
Lose her again?
losing Stephanie, but what you mentioned there, Jessica, was definitely key, you know, where you talked about focusing on the user. So it's not about what we want and what we want to see, but making sure that this product or this service or whatever it is that we're designing has the user in mind. So it's almost beginning with the end in mind and making sure that every aspect of this is truly human-centered. So that is definitely a great point. And so just to recap what you guys mentioned, guided discovery, problem-based to get to a solution. It's an opportunity, as Stephanie was mentioning, to say yes, and I love that, and the fact that it focuses on the design. So now that we said that, I think segueing into our second question, why is this so relevant and important to 21st century and future-ready schools and instruction? And so if you don't mind, Jessica, you would jump back in with why you think this is more than just a buzzword. This is more than just a trend in education. Why is this relevant? Why do you think this may have some sustainability?
I think it's relevant and it's really important for currently, and as a kind of future-ready learning, getting students prepared, is that our students are obviously going to be solving a lot of problems in the future, right? I mean, we're trying to solve problems. They're going to have even more problems. And I think that one of the reasons that problem solving often fails is because you don't think about the user. When you're trying to design a solution for changing someone's mind about something, you need to understand who the person is you're trying to change the mind of, otherwise it's just not going to work. And so it's not if you can't put yourself in the mind of whomever you're designing for, you can't actually solve the problem. And I think that our students, to be 21st century learners and global citizens and be able to contribute to the world, they need to be able to solve problems. And if they can't actually articulate what the problem is, as well as actually solve the correct problem, they're not going to be successful. And I guess I don't know if that makes sense, but kind of like if I was going to be designing a new school, well, I should be looking at okay, so great, I'm designing for a school for first graders. Then the person we should be talking to, among other people, are first graders. You know, what do first graders actually need? How do we actually solve for their needs? And if you don't take the user's feedback into consideration when you're designing solutions, you're not actually designing a real solution. And I think that that's going to be really important as we move forward into a more global society where you're going to be interacting with people who have very different points of view from you, who are you might not you don't understand their context, you may not understand where they're coming from, and I think that design thinking helps with that.
Yeah, it looks like we lost Valerie. I'll jump in on that. I think it's really relevant. Just thinking about like the standards that are coming out, the next gen science standards, and how do you get students in schools to move into those standards? That's the one thing. But I think on a bigger scale, when you think about having to move a lot of our students into science and engineering fields, and having to make breakthroughs in science and engineering fields, the younger we get them doing things that science and engineers do, the better. And the better they are at designing something and coming up with authentic solutions, I think it allows us to be able to get those students into a situation where they can start to make, all these new technologies that we're going to need to compete, in this 21st century. So I like this focus on science and engineering and technology, and this design thinking just goes hand in hand. It's like a hand in glove. Like if you're going to focus on science and engineering technology, students have to start designing things on their own and coming up with their own solutions.
And that's interesting that you mentioned, Toutoule, about science or STEM standards and how that might be relevant to students using the design thinking process. But let me throw this out to you guys. So let's say if we're not getting into the really heavy content standards and stuff. Let's say if we're focusing on a real issue. I'm pretty sure many of you guys are aware of all the things that are going on or that have been transpiring in the news lately. And when we look at that as being a problem that humanity is facing and dealing with, where does character education fall into this? And I'm kind of plugging in character education because currently right now we're in the process of designing something for the Teachers Guild, if you guys are familiar with Teachers Guild, and we're talking about building character. How do we build character in our students, and how do we design this as educators from day one? So in our homes, I don't know how many of you on panel are parents, by a show of hand. I know Toutoule has a young one, okay, and then some of you are off screen, maybe parents as well. A lot of focus on character education may take place at the elementary level. But when we start getting into middle school and high school, that no longer seems to be a heavy. How do we, as you talk about things that are relevant, that may not be science, that may not be math, that may not be the content, so to say, how do we implement things like character education into our classrooms and say that that's also equally as relevant as anything else? Anyone want to jump in, or Adam?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think oftentimes in education we're afraid to talk about the real issues or what's going on in the world, or afraid to have honest conversations with our students. And I think if you start those conversations or talk to your student like an actual person, and instead of just someone that you need to teach to the test, having that dialogue, understanding their point of view, all develops that student-teacher relationship, which engages them more. I see it, I work in an alternative setting, and the biggest thing we work on is that relationship. We can never get through to these kids unless we sit down and talk with them and understand what's going on during their daily lives, their perspective, and give our perspective as well. If I don't do that, I'm never going to get that student engaged, and I think that's even just as prevalent as an alternative setting as a comprehensive setting. So it's just treating these students as people and getting their point of view, respecting their point of view. If you can do that, you establish that relationship, and then learning just branches out from there. And you can throw in any content you want after that. They'll listen to you, but until you do that, they're not going to respect you in that light where they will be engaged no matter what.
Excellent point. So rapport is definitely important. It's relevant to education, and that's definitely something to begin from day one as we talk about building character. Now, I believe when I was mentioning the Teachers Guild, Jessica, you kind of shook your head about not a familiar platform. Well, the Teachers Guild kind of, they function under the umbrella of IDEO, and their work is based off of design thinking, and they really are pushing the envelope in the education space. And so if you check on Twitter, you can find them online just like anything else. You'll notice there's like a 9-day character challenge that's going on right now. And all of this is kind of part of the design thinking, where people are kind of sharing what they know about a certain topic, getting into that first phase, as some of you may know or may not know, as the discovery phase. So we know there's a problem. We see it in our news. It's inundating our TV sets. Even our young kids know that there's police brutality and racial profiling, and just it's just on our news sets. I mean, it's almost to the point where we don't even want to turn on our news, our TV sets anymore. But how do we build character in our students? How do we raise these adults that are now mindful, that serve our human beings in a way where they can empathize with them, that they can think critically? So these are all things to think about, and I'm not going to beat that over the head any longer unless someone else wants to jump in. But I want to kind of move on into what are some of the resources that you guys would refer. So someone who's a novice teacher or someone who's never heard of design thinking, where would you steer them? And if everyone could at least share one tool or one website or one place that maybe you found to be helpful for you, where would you send them?
I believe that Stephanie also had a comment. She had something that she wanted to say about the last question.
Yes, Stephanie, jump right in.
Okay, so the relevancy, and I think this has, sorry, there's dogs barking in the background. I think this also goes to, you know, the relevancy as well. You know, it's real world. I'm sorry, I have to yell at them.
No problem. While we're waiting for Stephanie to come back, if anyone else wants to join. And,
sorry,
they
were noisy.
No problem.
Okay, so it's relevant because in the real world, it's a process. It's a constant process. Like with my job, you know, I'm constantly evaluated and given feedback, and it's not that was good or that was bad, and then that's the end of it. It's this constant feedback cycle, and it's a process. And I think we teach character within that just by our interactions that we have with students, but most importantly, the interactions we have with each other. So as administrators, as co-teachers, you know, as coaches, as whatever our job is within the school system, you know, that's something that we're living every single day, and the students see that, and I think they learn more from that than anything else we have to really teach them.
That's a great point, Stephanie. So what I'm hearing you say is that character is not a separate subject. It's not a bell to bell. It's not this segment of the day and we're only focusing on it. Character is a lifestyle, and it should be seen. When people look at you, they should know who you are based on your actions, based on how you treat them, based on their observances of you with others. That is definitely a great point, Stephanie, and I'm glad that you brought that up. It should not be taught separately. It is a lifestyle. Excellent. So what are some of your go-tos? Okay, go ahead, Toutoule, sorry.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that character and design thinking as well. And when you were saying that, I was just thinking how little we engage students in coming up with authentic solutions, right? Like if there's an issue happening at school, all the adults kind of huddle around and we talk about it, and here's a decision, and then we kind of push it on down the pipeline. But we never step back and give the students the problem and say, here's a problem we're having, and allowing them to come up with a real solution and then implement that solution, and what would that look like. So when you're talking about character and you're talking about character education, well, we're having this specific problems. What type of solutions can we design in our schools that will allow this problem to be fixed? And then let's try it and then come back, look at it, and then iterate, right? So that really gives the students buy-in into some of the solutions. And if the students have buy-in, they'll probably more than likely follow through with whatever it is that they came up with. So so that design thinking has a lot of different applications in character education.
That's a great point. Absolutely, and I don't know where the breakdown happened. When I was in high school back in the 90s and we had student government, I almost remember feeling like we ran that school. Not because it was just a mentality that we thought we were doing something, but literally, we did run the school. The adults entrusted us. If we wanted to start a petition, we started a petition. If we wanted to do fundraising, we came up with what those fundraising initiatives would be, and we carried it out. It's almost like they trusted us to do it, or they empowered us to do it, and we carried it out. But slowly but surely, somewhere over the last 10 or 15 years, it almost appears as though the adults have taken back the reins. We don't trust the kids to do anything, but yet we expect them to be critical thinkers. We expect them to be innovative, but yet we don't equip them and empower them, like you said, Toutoule, with those authentic situations where we can see them carry it out, and they get that practice and they get that buy-in. So I'm not exactly sure where that breakdown happened. I don't know if it became the focus on standardized testing, and so it was out with everything else. But I was in school, I felt like perhaps design thinking was alive and well, and now we're probably just circling back around to it. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on it, or am I just off in a cloud somewhere on my own?
I think for me, the byproduct or side effect of the age of accountability is exactly what we're talking about. I see teachers who are now afraid to teach stuff that's not on the pacing guide or what's strictly related to a standard. Even as a principal, me telling them that's my requirement of you, they're saying, oh, we can't do that, we can't do that. I think it's been 20 years of this push towards standardized accountability and this sort of meat and potatoes approach to learning. And I think the pendulum's starting to swing the other way. And I think that stuff like design thinking is part of the movement that's going to push it back to where the students do have a say or do have a voice. But I think it is going to be another 10 to 15 years before we actually get to where we want to. But I think the more that we talk about it, the faster it's going to swing back.
Awesome. We all are riding this wave, and we're going to be part of this movement. It's almost like a revolution all over again, and I'm excited to see where things will go. So speaking of those resources, does anybody have any resources they want to throw out there? I have a couple of my own, but I'll open up the floor to you guys if you want to share. Where to get information on design thinking? What are your tried and true methods or go-to places?
You know, Valerie, I was thinking right now if there was a site that I go to or somewhere specific, but my go-to has been my PLN. Like going on Voxer and going on Twitter and following people's feeds and seeing what people are doing and having conversations. I think my best ideas have come through just conversations like this. Like someone says, hey, like we're doing the backyard science thing. The only reason I started the backyard science thing was because Stacy was doing it, and we started talking, and she was like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's try X, Y, Z," and that got me thinking how to get that. Got my brain moving. So to me, it's my PLN and people like you guys who are in this group who have wonderful things you do in your classrooms, and you share it either on Twitter or on something like this, a Google Hangout, or we go on Vox and we talk about it, and I'm like, yo, that sounds cool. And we side box, we talk and plot and scheme, and I go back and I try it. And that's how I've been getting a lot of my stuff.
Awesome. Jessica, how about you? After Jessica, I'll go on to Stephanie and then back to Adam if you guys want to add any resources. So Jessica, where do you go?
I do a lot of different things. One of my main resources, especially when I was starting out, was the Stanford Design School. They have a K-12 lab that has they put all of the resources online so that teachers can find kind of like how to start, like how to do a design challenge in an hour with your students or with adults, and sort of kind of teaching them how to teach the process to other people, which I think sometimes people struggle with, or how to ask interview questions, or how to do an empathy video or an empathy interview. The Design Thinking K-12 chat, the DT K-12 chat, also has lots of great resources. It's a great community of people who do design thinking in their schools. And so it's a weekly Wednesday chat, although I think they're off for the summer. And it's a great place if you're kind of like, I want to do the design challenge, but I'm having problems, and I go there to ask them for advice.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Stephanie, do you have any go-tos? And then we'll go to Adam.
Yes, I do. I actually, I'm going to probably give a plug here, whether or not I'm supposed to, for Launch by AJ Giuliani and John Spencer. We know that our Sarah has a quote in there. And that's been an amazing resource for me. Used it with my students and the resources that go along with it. And then also really my students themselves. I think we often underestimate and discount the resource that our students can be for us, and just conversations with them, that having conversations and seeing what they're interested in, the ideas they come up with, and just letting that creativity come out is such an amazing resource for me.
Awesome. And then If you would tell me again, you said A.J. Giuliani and John Spencer. Was there something you said before that, or are they the individuals that you go to?
They're the ones that wrote the book Launch.
Launch. Okay, got you. The book Launch. Awesome. And Adam, how about you? Are there any go-tos that you have when you're looking for things, centered around design thinking?
Yeah, I've been using a lot of, it's a free app, but just the Adaptive Schools app. Has a lot of strategies for effective communication. And then what I've been doing with a lot of the policies we're setting for next school year is we use these strategies, but it's not resolved just with our support staff. It goes to our teachers and then with our students, and then we reach a consensus. But this app and all the strategies help me, or help our school and me as well, get away from groupthink, or people just saying yes, or me ever taking the conversation, and reaching a consensus in an effective way where everybody's voice is heard. So I would highly recommend that. And I also agree that just talking with the students and not having a purpose for the conversation, just talking and chatting goes a long way, and do that every day.
Awesome. And I'll share a few here. This book, if you guys are not familiar with it, Change by Design. It's written by Tim Brown, actually over there at IDEO, and the teachersguild.org. That platform is one that I find is really resourceful and kind of gives you a hands-on. So there's a ideas, and like Toutoule mentioned, your PLN can kind of jump in and like your idea or ask questions to help sharpen your idea or help you look at it in a different way. So for me, this Change by Design book is a really good piece. Also, the Teachers Guild platform, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the XQ Super School Challenge. It was going on a little while ago, but they have this really huge, and it's based on design thinking, this huge box. I don't know if you guys can see it well. It's just as big as I am. But in this box are tons of resources based on the design thinking. And so when you guys talked about the empathy interviews and interview cards, I mean, this whole kit is set up, and it is free. You know, teachers love free. Free, free, free. Now, I don't know, you go on XQ, the letter X, the letter Q, Super Schools, I don't know if you can still order a kit at this phase. However, even this poster that's up on the wall behind me, I mean, they'll ship this all to you. I mean, it is a fabulous toolkit. And then the Teachers Guild also has their own toolkit. And I'm sorry, I'm like in a storage room. I'm literally in a closet. This XQ toolkit, and looks like my screen froze. But yes, you can get this XQ toolkit from the Teachers Guild as well that will help you with the design thinking process. So there, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard a bunch of resources if you are not familiar with design thinking that you can go through. In our last tweet and talk that we had earlier this spring on part 1 of this design thinking, I know that Laura Dixon mentioned a very great and clever definition that some students in New Zealand came up with. And I apologize that I didn't get a chance to write that down for you guys, but it covered pretty much all the things that the panelists talked about here today. Human-centered, empathy, starting with the end in mind. It even talked about the problem solving, getting to a solution. So I think that we are right on target with that. Rachel Pearson mentioned the Culver City Schools project. So if you're not familiar with the Culver City Schools project, please Google that and look that up. And I believe Corey Schiffburn, Corey, I'm butchering your name, Corey Colburn Shiflett, she also mentioned a project, and I wrote it down here in my notes. The last one here, what was it? Oh, it was called the Future Problem Schools Solution, FPSPI.org, Future Problem Solving Program International. So those, you guys, if you're not familiar, you're curious about it, it's not something you're going to learn overnight in one sit and get. It does take time. Get familiar with design thinking. And before we wrap this up, let's just do a quick run through. Can tell the viewers what are the steps to design thinking. Anybody brave enough to go through that? No takers? Oh, we got a taker. Awesome.
So I think the first piece of it is kind of framing the problem. So what problem are you solving? And then the second piece of it, actually, there's a whole framework for this that it's not in front of me right now. It'll take too much time for me to pull up. But the second piece of it is designing, like actual putting together a design, and that can look in a lot of different ways. You can have students talk with each other. You can have a group conversation, a whole group, small groups. And then the next piece of it is like creating some type of prototype. So it could be a physical prototype, like, you know, in science, if you're making a bridge or you're making a device to catch water or whatever. Then the next piece of it is testing. You test your prototype and get a bunch of data, a bunch of information that informs whether your prototype worked to your specifications or not. And then the next piece of it is talking about the results, communicating the results, what the results were, if the results kind of met your initial thoughts. And the last piece of it is iterating and thinking about what you're going to do next, and you start the process all over again until you get to a point where you're satisfied with the answers that you got. That's the rough version.
That's the rough version. Stephanie, Adam, Jessica, any of you guys want to add to that, or if you have a different set of steps that you want to share?
I would say I agree completely with that, except that I would definitely add empathy into that. I think, again, that is what makes design thinking different than just kind of the engineering process or a lot of other processes, is that when you're really part of the defining your problem in the beginning, again, is understanding your user. And so that's, you know, they call it empathy, but it's really going out and figuring out what your user needs, what your user feels, what they look like, you know, the different things, so that when you define your problem, you're defining it within their context, not necessarily your context. And so I think that's a really important part of the whole process.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say, you know, as you go through the process as an educator, there's going to be times where you want to jump in and solve the problem for them or try to steer them a certain way. And I think with true design thinking, you really just have to trust that the students are going to find their own way towards discovering what the answer is. But checking in with them frequently, letting them come ask questions, but never take over. You know, and I think that might be a hard thing for educators to get around, but and it's hard for me as well. But just trusting the student learning, checking in, making sure they're okay, but letting them find their own way towards their answer.
Awesome. Awesome. And Stephanie, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think the main thing is really just kind of adding in there that know that it takes time to do this, and if it is worth doing, it is worth taking the time to do it. And that is something that we are so often afraid to do, because we do get caught up in the pacing guides that come down, and know that, you know, it's going to happen naturally. You just have to let it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you guys, this has been great. I know there was one more thing that I, you know, wanted us to be able to do, which was kind of go through some of these of the steps look like, but I know that we are kind of running out of time. So, you know, just to kind of give everyone an idea, when we're thinking about the discover and brainstorming some things, want to brainstorm what character education look like? What does community activism look like? And another hot topic, what does flexible seating look like? So these are all things that are problems, correct? And we want to solve this mind. So when we're thinking about certain in our communities that feel like just doesn't care about them, or feel that they've been dealt the short end of the stick, how do we design something to solve that pain point for that group? Our students in our classrooms that just feel like, oh, school is just boring and I don't want to show up, and oh, here we go again. How do we design something with them in mind? And when we're talking about building character, well, I kind of think that that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with the community activism piece. But when we're talking about building adults that can see beyond color, that can see beyond neighborhoods or zip codes, that can see beyond socioeconomic status, how do we build character from day one? And so if we needed to brainstorm some ideas, pretty sure those of us that are right here on this very hangout would probably throw out a set of different ideas from the lens that we look through. But it doesn't make either one of our ideas better than the next person, or no one's right and no one's wrong. As a matter of fact, I gleaned some insight from some of the things that you guys may bring to the table. And so I think that's what's awesome about it, is that I don't have to have tunnel vision in design thinking, but I may have several aha moments that maybe I did not realize or recognize before. And so, because we are out of time, if you want to continue this, especially with the character education, I definitely implore you guys to go on to the teachersguild.org platform, where we are actually running an actual sprint design on character education, and I would love to see the ideas that you guys come up with, and we can give feedback to each other, we can iterate and build and come up with something great. So if there's not anything else, and I'll just open the floor one last time if anyone wants to give any closing remarks, and then I'll pass the baton on over to Sarah. All right, Sarah, all yours. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Valerie, for moderating that awesome discussion. Thank you to everyone on panel. Just loved hearing what everyone had to say, as well as everyone on Twitter and chiming in the Q&A, and our live viewers, as well as our replay viewers. So definitely appreciate that. This podcast will be transcripted. The transcript will be going out soon. Well, the transcript from Twitter, we're not going to take all of your words and transcript those, but the Twitter transcript will be going out in a couple minutes, and the audio will be saved as an iTunes podcast. So next week we're going to be talking about student perceptions regarding technology in education. So that's going to be a special episode moderated by Ron Madison. So would love to have anyone who has a student that is nearby, then please feel free to sign them up. We would love to have them on panel for hashtag StuVoice next week. So that's going to be great. Anyone can be a panelist. Just leave a comment on our Google Hangout page. In addition, we're going to bring back this topic for a part 3 because we've had so much passion, so much conversation about it. So it's scheduled now for November 6th. So if you're interested in signing up to be a panelist on that, then the link is bit.ly/tweettalk66. So it's going to be our 66th, well, that's not true, but it's going to be our week 66 episode of Tweet and Talk. So definitely sign up for that. So a couple shout outs before we sign off officially. So this Thursday coming up, we're going to have hashtag PassScopeEDU. So huge shout out to Valerie, who is our moderator tonight. She is the brains behind that operation. But definitely check that out on Periscope and on Twitter. The following week, there will be EdCamp Global, so check that out, edcampglobal.wix.com/edcamp. Still looking for facilitators, so if you're interested in facilitating a session, looking for you for that. We're going to have our very own EduMatch EdCamp, so EdCamp EduMatch going on August 6th, so sign up for that at bit.ly/EdCamp EduMatch registration. So cannot wait to have you there. And last but not least, the EduPassions Conference. What are you passionate about? Go ahead and submit a call for proposals that we're having open right now at edupassions.net. So check that out right on the main splash screen, and you can submit a panel or a presentation or an Ignite session on whatever your educational passion is. So we're still looking for people for that. So that is about it. That's a wrap. So again, thank you to everyone, and join us next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Have a great night.